Welcome to this episode of the Comedy Defect podcast. My name is Winter, I'm a comedian, and this is my show. Those new to the show, welcome. Those old to the show, welcome back, guys. This month we're supposed to have Charmian Hughes, but we shuffled it around a little bit, and she will be appearing at another date. And this month we have the fantastic Meryl O'Rourke. She has supported Frankie Boyle on tour. She's written for him for the last 12 years. She has written for TV. She had a 5-star review from the British Comedy Guide for her stand-up. She also runs courses. She's an excellent stand-up teacher. So if you ever wanted to do stand-up or you want to improve a stand-up, get on her course quickly because they sell out within minutes. And she is also gigging around the country at the moment. She's got a gig in Leeds, Manchester, Worcester, and she's also filming her first stand-up special, Vanilla, for Next Up, and that is in September. But go and see her live and go check her Twitter out for the dates, the places where you can get tickets. It's at Meryl O'Rourke. It's at MERYLOOROURKE, at Meryl O'Rourke, for the dates, the links, all that stuff. If you want to support the podcast, you can. Just go to Patreon, type in The Comedy Defect Podcast, and donate as little or as much as you feel this podcast is worth. And if you can't donate, that's okay. Just tell your friends about your favorite episode, or you can go to Facebook, like the page, go to join the Facebook group, because it tells people where we are and what we're up to. Now, I'm going to make this podcast intro short because I am feeling a little bit under the weather at the moment. I've got a virus. Don't know what it is. I haven't tested for anything yet, but coincidentally, when I recorded this podcast with Meryl, she just tested positive for COVID. So, I don't know, maybe the circle is complete. This is an absolutely excellent interview with a very funny comedian and excellent joke writer. So, I hope you enjoy it. The wonderful Meryl O'Rourke. Meryl O'Rourke, thank you so much for coming on the Comedy Defect and spending an hour or so of your time in your condition you're in, which is COVID infected.
COVID positive, baby.
COVID positive. I like that. That's a nice way to look at it.
Well, it's weird that because I don't feel that ill at the moment, and I am very aware, by the way, that you can not feel ill one day and then feel terrible the next day. That I've been surprisingly cheerful on the phone and stuff, because at the moment it just feels, well, special is a disrespectful thing to say to people who will die. But it just, it's different. After 10 months of lockdown and wondering when it's going to happen and stuff, it kind of feels a bit eventful. So and I'm getting, one really nice thing is that Test and Trace do phones. So I've had 2 phone calls from the government to check how I am and everything, which is nice to know. But I've been overly cheerful on the phone to them as well. But I think that's just because I've been so pleasantly surprised that they are paying attention and they are asking me, do you want to take part in a study? Are you sure when you're going to be out of quarantine? All this kind of stuff. Yeah. So yes, I am oddly cheerful. Hopefully, hopefully I'm not damning myself with that.
No, I mean, I will check in with you to make sure you survive the rest. I'll give you another phone call in a week or so, just checking things are on the way up.
Well, I've been thinking about who would know, because one thing is I'm on Twitter all the time, but the reason I'm on Twitter all the time is that none of my relatives are. That's actually the main reason I'm on there. So if I die or if something dreadful happens to me, there's no telling that anybody who follows me on Twitter will ever know.
I guess you'll start posting. You're very active on social media.
I guess. But my husband has also said that he definitely won't tell anybody on Twitter if I die, ever. He's always said that.
Okay. Why is that?
Just a matter of... Well, he kind of resents it, really. They're my second family.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay, fine. They just walk away, went out for some milk one day and just walked, left them there. Kind of go, she just was there one day and just wanted to do something wrong. So you kind of instilling sort of poor self-esteem in... Is it possible to instill any more less self-esteem in people who are actually on Twitter?
They'll all think I'm ghosting them.
Yeah, that's right.
I should also explain, since we've explained that I've got COVID, the other weird noise I'm making is that we ordered takeout and it didn't arrive till literally just before I started speaking to you, Winter. So I'm both breathless and eating.
That's fine. That's
I'm sorry. Fine. It's going to be slightly ASMR podcast.
Perfect. I love it.
Of me wheezing and eating.
It'll be something totally different. It'll add a bit of tension and suspense to the entire thing. Look, she's not sure if she can actually breathe for from 1 minute to the next, and now she's eating on top of it. God, we can't stop this woman. That's the name of the new show, Unstoppable. Now, this maybe seems a bit silly to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. You have COVID, right? So does it feel that like the last maybe year or so and a bit has all seemed a little bit worth it? You kind of gone, well, look, I finally have it now, and now there's nowhere further for this to go. I'm like, okay, look, that's it. I've had it. I'm on the up. It sounds that you're surviving it. It's okay. It's not affecting you too badly. So it's like, okay, fine. Well, that's it now. I can move out along all my life.
To be honest, no, not really. Because, well, first of all, I need to double check with my friends who've had COVID how you behave when you believe you've got immunity, because also they now think that we only have immunity for 90 days.
Right.
But I've got friends who've had it and are still wearing masks and distancing. So I don't know if I can start going around hugging people.
Right.
But also, one of the things we found out, so I got a test when I lost my sense of taste, which was on Sunday.
Yeah.
And this study that we've been put into basically said to me, losing your sense of taste is actually one of the last symptoms. You're probably better now. Feeling like you've got a cold is the beginning of it, which I haven't had. But my husband has felt like he's had a cold since last Monday.
Right.
But with none of the COVID symptoms. So actually it's really annoying that all this time he should have got a test way back Monday, Tuesday. I went to Asda last week because my husband just had a bit of sniffles. And we were told to carry on shopping through that.
Yeah.
When we had bronchitis last year and we were told to carry on shopping because it definitely wasn't COVID. So actually, no, it doesn't feel like, at last we've got it. I feel far more worried about my friends now. I feel far more worried about how many people are out there still spreading it around.
Yeah.
Now that I know how easy it is to go to Asda when you have COVID, because I horrifically did that. I'm very into distancing. I'm very into my masks.
Yeah.
There was a woman when I was trying to get some potatoes who leaned right over me and in my face said, "Excuse me," with her mask pulled down. And there is part of me that thinks, hey, bitch, I had COVID. I am not feeling that way about anybody else in the shop. I'm feeling absolutely horrified with myself. Every time they phone me, I say, have you told Asda? Have you told Asda yet?
Up to the leading of getting the COVID, then how have you managed to get through the last couple of years or so?
Well, I keep saying I've been very lucky, and part of it is luck, but also I keep saying to my husband that we should acknowledge how much work we've done to get where we are. So I did a lot of work trying to get TV writing work in 2019. So luckily when this hit, I did have a few contacts who were wanting to give me that TV writing work. That hasn't made me a huge amount of money, but it's kept me thinking forwards, if not even, that there are opportunities, there are people saying, we want to work with you.
Brilliant.
So that's how I've coped. But the loss of the gigs, I feel, for me, is more psychological than financial. I have lost about 50%, maybe 60% of my earnings.
Yeah.
I worked out I've lost 48 hours per week private time, which was too much, really. It's been nice being at home, but at the same time, I don't have any space for my thoughts to wander. So, for instance, being creative, it's very difficult to be creative because I'm not sitting on a motorway staring out of a window for 6 hours. Yeah. And even things like listening to the radio without any interruptions. It's weird how much I miss being on the motorway.
That kind of meditative kick that you get when you're driving to a gig and home again, as you're mulling over a few things that you've had kicking around your head. That's it. I do miss that too, for sure. Now just go sit in the car for a couple of hours, isn't it? It sounds so bleak, doesn't it? It sounds like something out of The Mist, sits and eats. Just Winter's going to sit in the car again. He's working up to doing something hideous with it to himself. That's what it feels like. Oh,
but it also, I started to realise relatively early on that I'm used to at least 3 nights a week walking up in front of 100 people or so and them all facing me and them all listening to me. Yeah. Now, I live with 3 people who never listen to me and very rarely look at me. So that was about one of the first ones where I went, oh my God, I don't have anybody just even facing me, giving me eye-to-eye contact. And my family actually started, they started bursting into rounds of applause when I walked in the room, just to make me,
that's nice,
to remind me what my life used to be like.
Oh dear! And then you realise how damaged a human being you are when you need that support. Oh, that's great though.
Yeah,
that's
maybe.
great. That's really nice though. That's nice. Now, mine just continue to ignore me, and they just annoy me even more. My family, they're just like, fine, look, they're starting to talk. Like now, I feel like I'm in a conversation. I'm getting heckled because other people start talking at the same time. It's like, oh my god.
Yes. So that's what I said. Like on stage, if I ask somebody what they do for a living, they'll usually reply to me. And if they don't reply to me, I'll insult them and move on. But here, if I say to somebody, can you go and put that in the dishwasher? They just ignore me. Yeah. And then I'll say it again. And I can't be like, oh, you know, I fucked your mum or whatever. Yeah. I have to just keep asking them to put the plate in the dishwasher.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And that's your nan as well I'm talking about, isn't it, really, you know? Yeah, no, I get the same sort of situation at the moment. I'm like, okay, I've managed to organise every corner of the house at like the last lockdown and just sort of like get everything in order. I've even joined a Dull Men's Facebook group to... have you heard of this one? Have you heard this one on Facebook?
Which one?
A guy called Chris Juice put me in, who I share a birthday with, 6th of August. We're just... everyone wants to send me presents. 6th of August, that's my birthday, guys. Okay, I fixed a bin lid came off my my recycling bin, you know, the green one,
okay.
and it flew off. And I was like, do you know what? I'm not going to get a new one. I'm just going to replace the hinge with a metal thing and just fix it. And he said, and I put the picture up on Facebook because nothing was happening in the summer, and he was like, Winter, you need to join this group. And I was like, okay, great. So I joined it, and I tidied up the shed, and I tidied up garage, and I took a before and after picture, and some fucking prick on there said, oh, which one's the before? I was like, fuck you. Yeah, so I've been doing that sort of stuff and just kind of doing little bits in between to just sort of kind of stop me from just going mad, just trying to organise, you know, so get ready for things, kind of battening down things, you know, keeping it in order, you know, for when things start to thaw.
The first lockdown I oddly loved. It was the novelty of being home and not being on the motorway.
Yeah.
But also I had managed to, we'd managed to find the only pasta in Streatham. And we were ridiculously proud of ourselves. And I had a little network of vulnerable friends who I was delivering clandestine pasta to. Yeah. My son and my husband, they've got this thing with the kitchen where they eat to empty the kitchen. They don't understand hoarding. Yeah. Whereas my mother was a refugee in World War II, so she was all about the hoarding. Wow. So I have a secret box which has got loads of tins in it. Yeah. And I just I felt like a proper mum, that I was looking after my family, and that I actually quite enjoyed homeschool. I know a lot of people don't, but I didn't get to see my kids. You know, I'd often be away for 4 days at a time, and they come home from school and you say, how was school? And they don't tell you. Yeah. And I'm really enjoying, especially things like English and history and drama. You know, I actually get over involved. If I make any kind of content, but I'm trying to work out what's funny about it, I am the over-involved mum. So at one point, my daughter's doing The Crucible, and she's on her screen, but I'm sitting there with a book about witchcraft, a book, Death of a Salesman, which is the only Arthur Miller I've got, and then all this stuff up online, and then her teacher disputed one of my facts, and I was so close to clicking... camera on, excuse me, I think you'll find it was written in 1953. So,
that's great.
Yeah, very over-involved homeschool mum.
I love it. Get excited. It's like, oh, look, you know, this wasn't allowed. I didn't get a chance to do this when I was in school. This is my chance to make up for that. Out the way, I'm coming in. That's it.
Maybe it is that, actually, because I really felt abandoned by my school. So actually, having the guts to say, well, no, actually, I have done the research and this is where it is. Feels quite good. But also some of the things, like in history at the moment, they're doing uprisings. So the history of political uprisings. They started off with the Chartists, who were the male suffrage, which I hadn't heard of, and the suffragettes, and now they're doing the Brixton riots. Right. And I lived in Brixton Hill during the Brixton riots. So it's actually really nice when they do stuff like that, and it feels...
connected.
I feel proud of her school as well. That's one of the other reasons I get over involved, is I'm like, well, this is a really good thing that you're studying. And
where did you go to school, Meryl?
I went to secondary school in Pimlico, which is actually north of the river, but for some reason, I don't know what deal our primary head had with them, but he sent pretty much all of us to Pimlico. And the building, it's really odd, because it was a really scummy comprehensive, but next door to it on one side was the kindergarten that Princess Diana used to work in.
All right.
And then behind it on the other side was Dolphin Square. which overlooks it, which when there was the whole paedophile scandal with Dolphin Square, it was quite weird knowing that it overlooked our playgrounds.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
But now they say that was all made up and not true, so I'm not sure how weird to find it now.
Yeah, right.
But it was a really horrible, violent, comprehensive.
Oh, okay. Was it capital punishment still in then?
No, corporal punishment, isn't it, being spanked?
Sorry,
no,
capital punishment, corporal, not killing them. Yeah, corporal.
No, the school, the kids were really violent. I mean, there was... just after I left, there was a rape. And whilst I was there, a parent got beaten up by a gang of kids. It was that bad. It got to the stage where just as I was leaving, a few of us you'd make friends with the teacher so you could sit in the teacher's office during break time.
Right.
It was that violent.
Wow.
And like I say, I felt totally abandoned by my school. I went into school when I was 11. I got a 99% in the 11 plus. I was the highest scoring kid in my borough in Lambeth. And then I left school at 16 with my O-levels. I had 5 O-levels, most of them grade C apart from English, which I got an A in, because I just, I know they're not fail, so I got a fail in physics. Nobody even attempted to help me live up to my potential, and not even vaguely.
Yeah.
They're talking to my daughter now. My daughter goes to it's considered a bit of a rough comprehensive, but they're still talking to her about Oxford or Cambridge.
Yeah,
and that was never even mentioned to me. And it must have been a possibility because the girl I sat next to in English went to Cambridge, but nobody in 5 years ever mentioned to me, do you think if you applied yourself you could get into Oxford or Cambridge, which I absolutely could have done intelligence-wise. Irish
schools are pretty bad as well. I don't think we had any version of, what do you have? What is it, Ofsted? I don't think we had that in Ireland. We don't have that at all. So it's just like people, I remember my teachers come in and go, right lads, get down to work, and then you just walk out again. That was it. That was it for like about 2-3 years of my leaving started to do. They were like, I had one class geography teacher, and he came in, right, let's get down to work, and that was it. And then one day, one of the students said, sir, when he actually did stay to do like half a lesson or something, he said, sir, we didn't do the other geography book. And he's like, what other geography book? And I was like, oh my God. So yeah, school, I get you. I think my school was like one of the school that the teachers went to because like a bit rejected from all the other schools, you know what I mean? It was one of those. Yeah. It was a Catholic all boys school, which was awful. Oh my God. There was a couple of good teachers. What part of
Ireland are you from?
Skibbereen, County Cork.
What's that name? Oh, yes, Cork.
Yeah.
See, I should know that because my family's Cork.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know it well enough.
Where I think Graham Linehan's from there as well. Alan Partridge does a pitch to RTE. He says, where are you from in Ireland? He says, I'm from Cork, Alan. He goes, whereabouts in Cork? And he says, Alan, you'd never have heard of it. He said, and I says, try me. He goes, Skibbereen. Never heard of it. That's it, so.
I've heard of Skibbereen. I must have been past it because we used to go quite a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But my family's from Doneraile,
right?
Which is tiny. Doneraile, which I used to have that is all nuns and horses.
Yeah, Doneraile.
That's pretty much all there is at Doneraile. A huge convent and a huge horse stud.
Yeah. All right. So when did you come over?
Yeah, my family is from in that. Well, it's weird because I always think of my dad as being from Ireland because he had an Irish accent, but he was born in Brixton. But he was so ghettoised.
Yeah.
So. Well, there's all these kinds of stories as well. I'm never sure whether to believe the romantic ones.
Yeah.
His dad had a job here as a headmaster, so he came over. But also my grandmother had an older daughter who is said to have been the illegitimate daughter of the MP for Cork, William O'Brien.
Okay.
And apparently they were quite open about it because his wife couldn't have children and she told him, go and spread your seed. Oh. And so my dad actually he met President De Valera when he was a little boy a couple of times because they were mates. And so there is a bit of a feeling that my granddad came over to England because he wanted to get his wife away from the Cork politicians and the guys that she'd been hanging out with and her ex-boyfriend. Oh, right. Stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So like, it's like, right. Okay. We'll make this work. You're coming with me somewhere else. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So like, was your dad a big storyteller as well, or was he?
I think so.
Funny?
Well, my dad died when I was 7. He was very funny. I don't really remember them very clearly, but the main thing that everybody ever remembered about him was that he was funny. I do remember he used to tell me very long stories about his mammy having a huge cooking pot and them having a tiny, tiny dog that was smaller than your hand. But I can't remember the text of any of the stories. And he used to find coins in my ears and at my shoulder and stuff like that.
Classic.
But it's weird When my mum died when I was in my mid-20s and I was going through all their stuff, and I found an old address book of my dad's, and I contacted an address which was Cousin Pat in Dublin. I just sent a note, not even knowing if Pat was male or female. Got back a letter from this woman who had not seen my dad since the early 60s.
Wow.
And said, your dad was hilarious. Brilliant. I think I told her that I was a comedian because I think I just told her everything about myself. And she said, I'm not surprised you're a comedian because your dad was hilarious. She said, even when he was a baby, he would crawl around barking like a dog and pretending to be a dog. So it's interesting that this woman who hadn't seen him for 30 years, her main memory, anybody that ever talks to me about my dad, is always that he was hilarious.
And was your mum...
But I have no memory of that.
Was your mum funny as well?
My mum wasn't funny in herself, but she was a huge comedy fan. Like massive comedy fan. It was in 24 hours. And I think he was as well. I remember when he got very ill, I had to go and fetch him. He spent all day in bed, apart from for Dad's Army or the Rockford Files. Either of those, I had to go up and wake him and bring him downstairs. But yeah, they were both massive comedy fans. I think that must be one thing they had in common. But I don't really remember him very well.
With the comedy stuff, did you watch with your mom? Was it just Dad's Army and the sitcoms, or did you like watch stand-up as well?
Everything. I used to go and see a lot of City and Sweep, which which is children's comedy. Yeah. I mean, City and Sweep and Morecambe and Wise do not have that much to differentiate them. My mum also, she wrote a book about music hall performers when I was 6.
Wow.
So I met people like Tommy Trinder and Arthur Askey who were helping her in the publicity for that. So yeah, all kinds, music hall and sitcom. But we started going to stand-up. Well, the thing is, when you're a kid... Well, no, actually, I know when we started going to stand-up. We used to go to Butlins every year. And so we went to Butlins every spring, which is mainly because when you're a single mum, it's really good to have a holiday where people are providing things for your kid to do all week. But also, she couldn't go out in the evenings. And in Butlins in those days, kids were allowed in the pubs. They had different licensing laws. So she could actually have a holiday where she could go to a pub. And so there were often stand-ups there. And I saw... Alan Stewart. I have a very strong memory of seeing Pauline Daniels because she was the first female stand-up I ever saw. And we used to go to Blackpool as well and see people at the end of the pier. So I saw the Grumbleweeds and Russ Abbott, Les Dennis and Dustin G. I saw the Les Dennis and Dustin G the night. Well, you're probably too young to remember any of these people.
I know Les Dennis.
So, right, he was in a double act, and Dustin G had a heart attack. And on his second heart attack, he died. But we went to see him the night where he'd had his first heart attack and was in hospital. And Les Dennis had to improv an entire show, an entire double act show just on his own. And I also, one of my very strongest memories that I talk about quite a lot actually was seeing Lenny Henry supporting the Grumbleweeds back in the very early days where he would, I don't want to say he did racist material, even though he calls it that because I'm white and I shouldn't say that about something. But I remember him referencing his colour. And being a girl who was growing up in Brixton, I remember actually saying to my mum, why he had this joke where he licked his sweat and he said it tasted of chocolate, and I literally did not get it. And I remember saying to my mum, I don't get it. And my mum being really uncomfortable and having to say to me, well, he's implying because he's got brown skin that he tastes of chocolate. And I was going, but he doesn't. And looking around, and it's such a strong memory. And I remember it being the first time I had really acknowledged the fact that white people see black people differently. So that's why I remember it so strongly. I figure remembering Pauline Daniels must have been a similar thing of me having been to Butlin so many times that I just went, oh my God, that's a woman. Because I remember her name, even though I must have only been about 9, 10 or 11 when I saw her. So
I love that. You even have in your joke mind, even at the beginning, you were like, that joke makes no sense at all. He could not taste of chocolate. He's a human being. Where is this come from? This is crazy town. I do not buy into this bit. This reality that you're making up. That's great.
Well, it's interesting. I was chatting about Lenny Henry recently online, and somebody said, would you say he was a big influence on you? And I guess, I mean, I don't know if you get this when people ask you who your influences are. Do you tend to go to Irish comics?
I do. I mean, I have a few like that I find, for different things. Like.
So I default to Victoria Wood, Marty Kane growing up, Pauline Daniels. I default to Frankie because I work with him. It never crossed my mind that Lenny Henry might be an influence because he is so different from me. And yet I went through that process, sitting in that audience, of looking at an audience and trying to work out why they were laughing and trying to work out why I didn't think it was funny, but they did. And then growing up, pardon anybody who's seen me on Twitter, because I talk about all these experiences quite often, because I saw him in Sleeping Policeman's Ball, the Amnesty gigs. And it was one of those nights where a lot of white middle-class double acts came on and did almost the same thing as each other. So you'd get you'd get French and Saunders would come on and go, how are you? I'm like this. I'm like this as well. And then the cast of Who Dares Wins, who I loved, I was a groupie of theirs, but they would come on and go, how are you? I'm like this. I'm like this as well. And it was just like loads of white people talking to each other. And then suddenly the whole theatre started pulsating with this beat. And Lenny Henry came on and he did this song called Bad Jokes, which is loads of end of the pier jokes, but sung to a kind of soul music. And it was so electrifying, and it was so kind of like, oh wow, he's doing something different. And I guess I can't say it's an influence because I don't exactly set the place alight when I walk on stage, but he was certainly somebody who all the way through my childhood I was going, well, what is he doing now? I mean, I used to copy his impressions when he was on Tiswas. I used to go to school the next day on Monday, well, not the next day, day after the next, and do all of his impressions again to see if I could. So actually, he must have been a huge influence on me.
Do you find this when you're a kid as well, that kind of mind of that you wanted to be the funny one in your group of friends, did you? Or did you, like, before you went in, did you have like a set? Nothing like that. I did a thing when I was a kid. I'd have a set, like I could go, right, these are my stories. Right, okay, what am I talk about here? I'm going to go through this bit. Like I'd nearly rehearsed the improvised conversation I was going to have with them later on.
Well, I suppose because I was saying no, but I did do those impressions. And I think what it was that I was always the actress.
Yeah, right.
So I wanted to be an actress. And so I guess in my mind, I was acting. But the thought of actually making them laugh wasn't part of it. It was the thought of being able to be somebody else was more part of it. And then at secondary school, I think because I was bullied so much, I was actually desperate to be taken seriously. So the thought of making people laugh would have been awful to me at secondary because I always felt like people were laughing at me all the time. So yeah, I was never really the joker. And that sort of fell on me by default when I was at drama school because they didn't know what to do with me at drama school. Yeah. So I kind of had to be funny or get chucked out of college. Right. So then it was almost kind of forced on me. With the bullying, I was bullied in school as well. And like, I found that was, it's a common trope perhaps, but like, did you find that when you came to do performance stuff, you had the flip, you had a false confidence that you would lean on, and then when it came to doing performance stuff, that was the thing that was really would lay you bare and just be like, okay, well actually I can't hide anymore. This is me now. Possibly. I didn't ever have any false confidence because when I would get bullied, I would just burst into tears. Okay. Like I'd sit at school crying. Right. And I think it's more that I was an outsider. Yeah. And I actually think like the trope of the bullied kid becoming the comedian has always been that we try to make our bullies laugh, which if I tried to make a bully laugh, she'd have slapped me. Right. Like, I don't know what's like. Maybe it's different for boys. You do not laugh your way out of girl bullying. You do not get weirder with girl bullying, right? You conform. Right. So, but I think it is more that you stand aside from everybody and you watch them. And therefore you're able to observe their behaviour and you're able to point out what is ridiculous because you're not within it. I found that the hardest thing for me when I first started doing stand-up was that the first few years I didn't want to make anyone laugh. I wanted to make everybody pay. That's what I kind of... I was like, yeah, well, you know what? You don't understand. This isn't for you. This is mine. And that is the wrong attitude. That's not what people want. But that makes a lot of sense now. With there's there's a certain movement of new comedy now, which is you can't handle the truth. I went on, I dropped some truth bombs, and they banned me from that club. They banned me for saying I was sexist and violent and racist, but they haven't banned me. It's because they can't handle the truth. And you go, no, mate, it's because you weren't funny. No, yeah. Right? It's because you weren't funny. Yeah, that's it. I think when I first started stand-up, I just wanted people to fancy me. So certainly my initial... when you first start and you almost mistake any noise as counting as a laugh? Yeah. So mine would be noises of arousal or shock. would count as a laugh to me. And I got a very bad reputation, which nobody really talked to me about. People would take my jokes way too, it's the weird thing. I don't know if men get this, but when you're a woman, for instance, if you're a woman and you do a routine about threesomes, people will presume you therefore had threesomes. It's what my one of the things my solo show is about, why it's called Vanilla, is that I've always had a dirty mind, but it doesn't actually mean I've ever done any of those things.
Yeah.
So I got a horrible reputation, and it took ages for somebody to actually say to me, well, why do you say these things on stage? They're just shocking and rude. And I went, but people laugh. And she went, no, they don't laugh, they gasp. And I was like, oh yeah. But because nobody goes up to comics and say to them, you're not very good. Like it's such a taboo. But that also means people can't improve.
Yeah, that's true. Need feedback. It's difficult sometimes with that lack of self-awareness, isn't it? Really, like, oh, I'm obviously smashing it. This attention that I'm gathering from this performance is, we all use that attention to fill up a different side of our psyche, don't we? It's like, okay, you're like, right, okay, what do I need? Well, that's what needs to fill that part up. And once that's topped up, you finally then can see yourself from a different perspective, unless someone has actually pulled you aside and said, by the way, this isn't working.
Which doesn't often happen.
Not
and
at
I think
all.
Maybe that's one of the reasons that I teach, because I teach comedy writing, and apparently one of the things I'm quite known for is telling people when they've not been very good. But I always say, like, well, what are you paying me for? Are you going to pay me this amount of money for me every week to go, that was great, exactly. That was great? No. So if I say to you, well, I'm very conscious of the shit sandwich. I'm very conscious of saying that was a really lovely piece of work. What I kind of didn't understand, I'm very cautious of that. But even with people who are fantastic, like, why are they giving me money if every week I'm just going to say that's fantastic? I actually think it's my job to find something wrong. If I've got somebody who's one of my students and they're giving me consistently fantastic work every week, it's my job to actually go through it even more forensically.
Totally.
And say, well, actually, this bit could be funnier. Otherwise, why are they there?
That's right. But sometimes there's that, because I remember when I first started, I went to a sort of like I'd say advanced, like being gigging a couple of years. I went to this class, and they went, that was terrible. That was, and there was no. But the weird thing is, I'm sure that you give it a constructive and a way, the way they can build upon and critique themselves and actually just work through. But this was like, no, you're shit, and I was like, it sent me in a tailspin for years, and I was like, I will not quit.
Sorry.
No, it wasn't you. So,
I know, but I'm sorry anyone hurt.
But no, it was. Thank you. I was hurt, but it was like,
I like
oh my
to think
God.
it's constructive.
Oh yeah,
there will be people. Yeah, there are two I can think of. There was one particular guy who genuinely seems to have come on the course just to be told every week that he was wonderful, because the first week where I gave him the smallest bit, he'd done some sketch which was about a wild animal,
right,
and he'd chosen the wrong animal. I can't remember why, but the animal he'd chosen didn't have the character traits that he had. So I just sort of suggested a different animal. Wrote me this hugely long email about how he's done brilliantly in everything he's ever pursued. Yeah. And I just had to say to him, well, maybe comedy is the one thing you don't do. Maybe it's fine. But he was so angry, and he wanted his money back.
Oh, no.
And then the only other one I've had was there was a lady who did podcasts and stuff. And there is something that I've noticed. I mean, the thing is, I'm not even trying to be funny now. I don't even know if you wanted me to be. There are quite a few newer comics who will do podcasts, and so they'll get very used to just chatting about their week, and then they get on stage and they chat about their week, and people are going, where is the punchline?
Yeah, it's a bit long.
And so the only other person I remember who was really like, I do not like you, was she was so confident about her podcast following that every time I suggested a punchline to her, she was just like, no, I don't need to. I'm not going to make something up just to end this. And I was like, well, I'm teaching you how to write jokes.
Totally.
If you just want to learn how to chat, I don't even know if there are classes to teach people how to just chat. But that was what she wanted. She just wanted me to say every week, you're fantastic.
Wow. Need to be humble.
There are services. I mean, I'm sure there are people on Adult Work and OnlyFans who will tell you you're fantastic for less money than you pay me to tell you how to write a joke.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, and you're like, by the way, supported Frankie Boyle on Hammersmith Apollo. And right from consistently, still working for him. So it's like, look, what the hell? What do you need? What do you need to prove that I'm good at this? You know what I mean? Rather than don't you do have a podcast? How many podcasts have you done? Well, I've done a few. It's like, come on.
Do you know what though? Teaching and doing are two very different things, and I am often very conscious of the fact that I'm not the most successful comedian in the whole world, and therefore, what right do I have to teach anybody? But actually being able to look at somebody and going, oh, hang on a minute, this joke isn't satisfying because you've forgotten to do this with it, is a very, very different skill. And actually, I don't know, because I don't know if Frankie has ever taught anybody. I know he likes to encourage people to write, so he definitely helps people learn how to write. But being able to work out why a joke works and doesn't work, it's actually far more to do with my background. It's actually far more to do with having been to see live comedy since I was 6 years old than it is to do with what I do for a living.
It's part of your life.
Because actually... Yeah, when I'm on stage, I'm not thinking to myself, well, what this needs is a juxtaposition, right? I'm going, I need to do some comparative subversion at this point. I'm just telling my jokes. I'm just being funny.
Yep. Yeah, I need to do the surreal inquisition on this bit. Yes,
exactly.
Oh God, yeah.
I need a few more consonants. And actually, sometimes my daughter, because my daughter has been around when I've been teaching, sometimes she'll read something and she'll say, "Well, hang on a minute, it's because you haven't put enough consonants in that sentence," or something like that. She'll know how to fix it.
When did you do your first gig then in comedy?
I can't remember the date. Either that or I've willfully forgotten it. Yeah. But I was still at college.
Where'd you go college?
Because, well, like I say, I went to drama school. They didn't know what to do with me, mainly because I had short hair.
Okay.
That seemed to really baffle them. And they used to give me all the comedy parts, which I just couldn't do. And then they would criticise me for not being able to do them. Yeah. So I started doing comedy workshops. But I found also at the time, it coincided also with me suddenly having one-night stands and getting dumped, because before college I had 2 long-term relationships. So I think the combination of suddenly being in a place where all the teachers hated me and I couldn't get laid, and also at the time being told I had to be funny, sort of collided because I had something to write about. So I started writing about how fucked up I was and about my fucked up relationships. Yeah, I think... because I joined this improv group to try and learn how to be funny, they started doing gigs at the King's Head.
Great.
So,
great.
And that was the thing that, the King's Head in those days, on Tuesdays, they had every other Tuesday, they had an Irish night. Yeah. And the other Tuesday was a Jewish night. And because I'm half Irish, half Jewish, my first gig was at the Irish night and my second gig was at the Jewish night the next week.
Oh, brilliant. Do you have a... I know. Did you do... Was Jewish Comedian of the Year available at that time, or was it not a thing?
No, it wasn't. I've never done it because I don't feel like I'm Jewish enough,
Damn it.
I am Jewish, but I feel weird about... because I always know with my name as well, it always takes a bit of explanation. Yeah. So I would feel weird about walking onto that stage. Yeah, bet. But, I don't like competitions. Once you get to a certain stage where you're not expected to do competitions anymore, it's such a blessing, because the competition circuit when you're new is so awful. It's such a horrible experience that I wouldn't put myself up for it voluntarily again. So your first jokes were about despair and the sadness of... relationships, like a lot of people's first jokes, because I think... well, maybe not. I think these days a lot of people are political more. It's what's getting to you, the thing that's keeping you up at night. That's right. So that was your first gig. Can you tell me about your worst gig, Meryl? The worst gig you've ever had? What springs to mind was Belfast Empire. Right. Where... I think you get asked about these a lot. So I was wondering if there was one since, but I don't think there is actually. So... The booker, for some reason, had got it into his head that I was very busy. So he'd arranged my flight for just before the gig and arranged my leaving flight for 6 o'clock the next morning. So I literally, I have no idea what Belfast looks like. I arrived, went to the gig, got there just as it was starting, and the MC wasn't very chatty. And also we had to sit backstage, which I hate doing. So we couldn't see the audience at all. And I thought to myself, and the MC had a really strong accent. And I'd been given one bit of advice, which was don't refer to this as Britain, but don't refer to this as not Britain. So I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't hear what the MC was saying while I was backstage, but I thought to myself, well, do you know what? I'm going to recognise my name, because that's all I really need to hear. Yeah. But he had forgotten my name.
Oh, no.
So he said something and then paused, and nothing happened. And then he said this thing again and then paused, at which point the guy who ran the gig threw me onto the stage. Oh. So I was already nervous. I was already tired. I had no idea I was arriving on the stage. Yeah. So I stumbled onto the stage and then very squeakily kind of went, hello? Like that. So I sounded tweer and posher than I've ever done before. Yeah. And then, so somebody shouted, fuck off, like immediately. Oh. And I started trying to tell my jokes, but I couldn't see anything. It's one of those places where the lights are incredibly bright. Yeah. I couldn't see anything. My head was all over the place and I was stumbling. I was still quite new. I was still only doing 10 minutes and they were booing. And then after a while, I can't even remember how it ended. All I can remember is the booing. I can't remember anything other than the booing because I can't even remember walking off stage, but I must have done. And then afterwards, I had to get back to the hotel as soon as possible because I had to get up at 4 a.m. Yeah. So I went into a chip shop and the crowd from the gig were in the chip shop and they booed me out of the chip shop.
Oh, no. Come on. I'm one of you now. I'm one of you. I just want chips. Come on, guys. You know,
in the end, I had to put my scarf over my face. Yeah. So I could go into a chip shop and go, fashion chaps, please. Just so I could have something to eat before I went to bed to get up at 4 a.m. Because it's a completely wasted journey.
Oh, dear. So how many shows have you done then, Meryl? Have you like the fringe shows or like full shows?
Oh, fringe shows. I have been very scant with the solo shows. I've just done the 2. I think one of the things was I used to go to Edinburgh before I performed at Edinburgh. And therefore I put it very high up on a pedestal, which the reason I'm pausing is that I now think it's gone too much the other way. Like too many times I've gone to Edinburgh and sat down for an hour in front of somebody who really wasn't ready, who was like, oh, this is just a work in progress. I'm going, well, it didn't say that in your press and I could be somewhere else now. Yeah. So I think there has to be something in between, but I put it so high on a pedestal, I was always terrified of going. And also, when I started, people always used to say to me, you can't do Edinburgh with relationship jokes, because I wrote a lot about relationships and a lot about sex, which I still write a lot about. And I've gone through phases of going, oh my God, I wish I didn't write about sex. And then realising it's what I'm good at. You know, I'm good at being very frank. Yeah. I mean, we had the most recent thing that's come up, because I'm not writing that much in lockdown, but the most recent thing that's cropped up is that I might have the early stages of clitoral cancer. Oh. They're keeping monitored. And it's like, like of all the things, it is so on brand me. If I die of clitoral cancer, it would be the most on brand way I could die. And so it's become really inspiring of me trying to write about how embarrassing that would be. God, yeah. But also how on brand. And so as much as I don't want to write about this, I mean, I remember my management when I first went up to Edinburgh said to me, the thing is, Meryl, you've had a very accident-prone vagina. And I have. Like there's a whole bit in Vanilla, my current solo show, about how I permanently damaged it when I was 17. Right. Which is one of the reasons I might have this precancerous thing. Oh. So, yeah, they always used to say to me, you can't go up to do relationship jokes, you can't go up and do sex jokes. And I was like, well, that's who I am. Yeah. I'm just hacky relationship. And then Sarah Millican, when she was new, and so she was too new for anybody who had said to her, nobody had said to her, you can't go to Edinburgh and do relationship jokes. So she went to Edinburgh and did an hour of relationship and sex jokes because she just got divorced. And I was like, what? Yeah. So then that really sort of spurred me on to go, well, hang on a minute. And actually, when I did go up for my first hour, I wrote an hour about my relationship with my mum. I know, very original. But half of the show was about her escaping from the Holocaust. Wow. Because I kind of felt like I didn't want to, I'd tell anecdotes about her and people go, God, your mum sounds nuts. And then I always felt bad for her. So I wanted to contextualise why my mum was nuts. You know, like why my mum wouldn't let me out the house and stuff like that. So that was the first show I did. And then the next year I got pregnant. And then I've never got my head around losing thousands of pounds every year being normal.
Yeah.
And saying to my husband, like I say to people, well, my husband doesn't want me to go away for a month. They go, oh, isn't he supportive? And you'd go, he's got his own life. I have 2 children. And to say to somebody, I'm going away for a month during the school holidays, so you have to look after both kids, you have to give up work for a month. I'm going to lose about £5,000. Yeah. And when I come back, I might have nothing to show for it other than a partial nervous breakdown. And so going back up has just been such a huge mountain to climb. Yeah. And then I finally, this year, I mean, that's the thing, I finally was going up in 2020 and they cancelled Edinburgh. So it's like, oh, well.
It's a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
But I've got, and the thing is, the reason I was going up this year was that I didn't have an agent. And I was thinking, this seems to be the whole. It seems to be the fact that I'm not in Edinburgh, because the agent who did want me, she then went to Edinburgh and took on some people.
Right.
So that was the whole reason I was going. And what I've done in lockdown, I've done vanilla, online, live via Zoom. Yeah. I've done it about 5 or 6 times.
Great.
I've now got an agent.
Brilliant.
I've had Next Up see it. They're interested in filming it when we're out of lockdown.
Yeah.
So I have actually got what I wanted to achieve from writing a new solo show and performing it.
Excellent. That's great.
And actually, if this is what we needed to dismantle Edinburgh and actually sit back and look at it and go, is it a humane business system to make people go somewhere for a month and lose thousands of pounds and live in flats with each other? Like, the rate of sexual assault up there, the rate of people falling down drunk and having horrible accidents up there, the amount of money people lose.
Yeah.
It's not humane.
No.
And none of the other festivals operate like all of the other festivals. You go up for 3-4 days, maybe a week. And so if this is what it takes for us to sit back and go, do you know what? Does Edinburgh actually work? Is it a good system, or do we really need it? I think it would be really good to have this time to say, this is really difficult for some people.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I mean, price of accommodation, everything is crazy, and we're I've been up 4 times, and it's like, I just can't do it anymore. It's like
a lot of people didn't even get their money back. So we were very lucky. We had hired a flat, and the woman gave us our money back. But a lot of people had signed contracts which said, you won't get it back.
Wow.
It's not humane. And I often wonder, I was going to say maybe because you're Irish you'll relate, but that's being very presumptuous. It was a long time that a lot of black acts didn't go up to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And I grown up on a South London council estate, and my mum, both of my parents were immigrants. My dad was born here, but he's had a immigrant outlook on life. And I certainly have not been raised in a situation where you throw away £5,000 for a month of your life on the off chance. Yeah. And I think this is not to stereotype black people, but a lot of the black people I know come from families who have a very similar outlook on life. You work to get money. You don't pay money to work.
Yeah.
And I think it's one thing that's really stopped a lot of black and minority ethnic acts going up. It's stopped a lot of working class acts going up. There's been this whole program run by Sian Davis to get more and more working class acts to go up, which they have to crowdfund. It's a really odd way of running a business. I don't think if you spoke to a baker and they said, oh, we're going to this trade fair and we're going to lose £5,000, we're going to do it every year. Yeah. It would be insanity. Nobody else does this. Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. I think it's just like a machine that, everyone perpetuates that culture of madness. It's like a pyramid scheme, and like the comedians are the last people to join it.
Well, I kind of found out what it was when I was, so like I say, I've been trying to get more TV writing work. And one of the reasons that it happens is that, so if you say to somebody in a TV company, can you come and see me at this gig on Friday night? It's in the West End, so it's just by your office. They go, well, I finish work at 5. And you go, yeah, but it's at 7:00. Yeah, but I need to get home. They very rarely will go to any gigs in the evening, but they can take a week or 2 weeks from the office to go to Edinburgh because it's seen as part of work. Yeah. So most TV execs, even if you are doing a gig next to their office, they are more likely to see you in the 1 week that they are in Edinburgh than the whole rest of the year that they're in London.
Okay.
So that's the main reason that it persists, I think.
So yeah, it's that off chance. It's a lottery ticket, really. It's a very expensive lottery ticket. You said your mum wrote a book on music hall.
Yes.
She was just a comedy and theatre nerd then, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know quite why. She worked at Lambeth Libraries, and I think they commissioned it, but I don't know why. I mean, some of her stories, so she used to go and hang around at the stage door of the Palladium, even if she couldn't afford to get in. But like when she was a child, we're talking about when she was 10 or 11 or something, so getting Danny Kaye's autograph when she was a kid. And also there was a theatre in Brixton called the Empress.
Right.
So she told me that she would go to the theatre to see people all the time. And if she couldn't see them, she would just wait at the stage door. Yeah. And she listened to a hell of a lot of radio. So I've got booklets, scrapbooks of all the photographs of the radio stars. So I've got a very early Peter Sellers autograph where he was pretty much nobody at the time. So it's got his home address on it and everything.
Cool.
And it's chubby young Peter Sellers from Raise the Laugh. I don't know how that then linked into her being fascinated with Mari Lloyd and Dan Leno and George Robey, and whether it was just the locale, because my mum came to Lambeth when she was 5 or 6. And it's interesting that if you ask me how I identify, I feel like a Lambethan more than anything. I really identify as somebody who is from Lambeth, and that comes from her. And I think that just knowing that so many huge people from the world of comedy lived around here, which I was told it was because the A23, it's a direct straight road from Brighton to Leicester Square.
Okay.
So, and that was where most of the variety acts had their work.
Yeah.
So if you got a boarding house in Brixton, in fact, there's a book called Wise Children, which me and my daughter really love. And some of that is set in a boarding house in Brixton for showbiz types. So there were loads around here because it was easy then. You could get a tram into the West End or you could drive down to Brighton really quickly. Yeah. So that was why a lot of people like Dan Leno and George Robey lived around here. But also, of course, Charlie Chaplin and Stan Laurel worked at Carno's Capers in Camberwell. Yeah, I don't know. I can't, she's not with me anymore, so I can't say why. It's a general atmosphere of comedy in the house all the time.
It seems to be dyed in the wool since you're a very young age. That's amazing. And just kind of, it's brilliant. Was it?
I saw Morecambe and Wise when I was 7, saw them live. I saw Victoria Wood live when I was 13. Yeah. So, and that was another thing my mum did. There was a club called the Theatre and Comedy Club. Ray Cooney, who wrote farces, he actually hired an entire theatre and he wanted to have like a rep company. He wanted to have a group of actors who were in all of his comedies. You could join the club, so you would go and see previews and then he would sit with the audience and say, what did you think? And you could inform him as to what you thought of the new shows that he was writing. And so my mum was on a panel of that. So she would arrange big ball that had Victoria Wood entertaining. So I got to sell raffle tickets and I got to meet Sheila Steeple and Tim Brooke Taylor. And for my mum, it was never a thing that we just went and watched. It was always a thing that we also analysed and we met the people and we thought about them and we talked about them. So it always had that extra edge to it.
Did she see that you were potentially going to become a comedian, or did she think you're going to become a comedian when you're old? Did she see that in you, or did she see you gigging as well?
No. Well, no, she saw me gig for a little bit. I'd literally just started before she died. It was a surprise to both of us. I wanted to be an actress and I wanted to be a classical actress. I can't remember it being a discussion when I went into doing stand-up. Yeah. It surprised me. I think it must have surprised her as well.
Surrounded by it so much, you think that now it just feels that it was it just had to happen. You know what I mean? From the stories you're telling, it was just there's no other way. It never
felt like a viable career. I mean, a lot of the people would see around the time when she died, we were going to see Stuart Lee quite a lot. So a lot of the people who we used to go and watch were very Oxbridge. Maybe different now, but in my early 20s, going to a smoky pub was not something I did either. So it didn't seem accessible as an actual career.
I know what you mean. Exactly the same. In Ireland, I didn't see it. Like, I didn't know how to get into it. I was like, the only time I kind of had any contact with it when I came to the UK to do a course and, like a degree in that, and then just went back again and, you can do that here. And by that time, it was starting to get easier to kind of find gigs and stuff. But there was no route at all when I was younger. No.
And it felt a bit grubby. So I didn't like going to pubs. This is something actually you don't realise before you become a comedian. So you go, well, I don't like going to pubs. And at the time there was smoking as well. So I don't like going to places where there are drunk people and smoky people. And what you don't realise when you're not a comedian is that the comedians don't actually have that experience. You're in a back room. A lot of comedians do drink, and especially then there were quite a few alcoholics, but actually you're sober because you're entertaining. So I quite like now, I say now, before lockdown, being in the West End and walking through crowds of very drunk women who have wearing very high heels, who are spending loads of money, and I'm trotting through them in my trainers because, yeah, we are in the clubs and the pubs, but we're having the opposite experience to the public. It's not comparable at all.
When you start, is there a sort of like a job or an animal or maybe a being? It could be anything. It's a pretty broad question. You know, that like a type of. I've had people say that they feel that when they go on stage, they're like an IT technician. They turn the laughs on and off again, or they're like a PCSO. Is everyone okay? Is everyone good? Okay, right. We're gonna continue on. We're gonna make it safe. It's gonna be fun, but controlled. Other things like that. Do you have anything in mind that you protect? Maybe at the beginning, you might not have to feel like it now, but there was something you go, I feel like this when I'm on stage. You know?
No, I don't know. I've never thought of it that way. The only thing that's come into mind now you're saying it is a roller coaster, because it does feel, or more like a toboggan, because it does feel that when I push myself. Once I'm on the stage, that's it. I'm go, 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 go. I've never thought about it in terms of that before,
cool.
Me being anything other than me.
No, that's fine. That's fine. A tobogganist is amazing too. That isn't seriously like a luge or a person on luge or something like that, yeah? Or like
and also not really having a concept of how. So I don't know if you get that. So I'll stand off stage getting ready, knowing what the first few things are that I'm going to say. But then when I'm actually on there and it's all coming out and people are laughing, there is part of me going, how are you doing this?
Yeah.
Especially when I'm emceeing and I don't always know what's going to come out of my mouth next.
Totally. Oh, it's beautiful. I love emceeing. It's so fun. It's just so free flowing.
I miss emceeing more than anything.
The magic just kind of flows sometimes. It's like, where is this? This is perfect. Like that couldn't have landed any better, even though I didn't even try. It's great.
And you're so proud of yourself when it's emceeing.
Totally. That was great fun.
And I do... Like the thing you said there about people feeling like a community police officer. One of the other things, I mean, I've often said to people, I like it when I'm regarded as the gig mum. And some of my most fond memories of emceeing are like people coming up to me in the interval and going, I've lost my friends. Have you seen where my friends are? And for me to be standing on stage, I'm quite often really mean. Like I can be really nasty to people with a great big smile on my face. And to know that they will still come up to me and go, I've lost my friends. Can you... Like they completely regard me as their friend and as the person to ask where the toilets are and not intimidating at all. And I love that side of emceeing. That's
it. It's great. You're like looking after everyone, making sure everyone's good, and just protecting the night, and then, making sure everyone just goes home with a smile on their face. It's great. So Meryl, like Vanilla, next up, you're going to be recording it when the lockdown finishes. You're recovering from COVID and
I didn't even know if I'm recovering. I only found out I had it 2 days ago.
Okay.
Very confused.
You're COVID positive, right? I still love the spin on it.
COVID positive, baby.
And like, so have you got, what else have you got in the pipeline that's got coming up?
Teaching another course.
Oh, great.
But the course is sold out, but I sell gallery tickets. So if anybody is interested in giving me any kind of money. Yeah. So when it's on Zoom, I sell tickets to kind of just be in the Zoom room and watch me teaching the other people. So they're cheaper than the full course, but you still get a lot out of it. You just don't get me saying it's actually nicer because you don't get me telling you that everything's wrong.
That's great.
you get to watch me tearing other people to pieces.
You get Meryl Light. Yeah, he's just
Which a lot of the people in the gallery have actually said they quite like the fact that they can hide.
Great.
And nobody can look at them, probably all naked. So yes, I'm selling tickets for that because it's sold out. Frankie Instagrammed that I was doing a course and it sold out within 4 hours.
Wow.
So that was really nice. Well, it's also nice as well because it means that most of the people on the course like him.
Yeah. So
I'm often very aware when I'm teaching that I might say, well, when Frankie wrote this, when Frankie wrote that, simply because I know him better than anybody else. And I'm always worried that people will get bored. But at least this lot are on board with that. And I have an agent now.
Yes.
And she's putting me up. Oh, yes, I'm meant to be on the Jeremy Vine show soon, giving my opinion. So that'll be interesting. Great. Trying to find the line between jokes and opinion. Yeah. And all the horrific death threats I'll get afterwards. But there we go. We got to work, haven't we?
This is true. Publicity's publicity, eh?
Well, also, it's like the reason I'm on there is that I made a little video that went viral. And that was a weird thing as well, because it was the video I put the least amount of effort into.
Yeah.
It was just me shouting at some traffic. And it was actually quite embarrassing going viral shouting at traffic. People say to me, could you not have written a script? And I go, I have written scripts, nobody liked them. But Jeremy Vine loved it. And one thing about that was So people were coming back to me saying, why are you shouting at traffic? They're just people going to work. Don't you understand people have to work? And I was saying to them, yes, this is me working. This is all I have left now. All I have left is trying to make viral content. So the fact that that has turned into a paid job is kind of a really good way of me going, well, this is what I did. I put some content out. It went viral. Yeah. The person who retweeted it, I said to them, can I have a job? And he said, yes. And so that is all we've got at the moment. That's so if what I'm doing is spouting my opinions instead of telling jokes, well, thank you very much, Jeremy Vine, for letting me do that, because otherwise I'd be sitting at home doing nothing like a lot of my colleagues are, which is really upsetting.
Have you launched onto TikTok with it as well now?
No, I'm terrified of TikTok. Yeah. I get very addicted online. And my son, part of homeschool, read an article about how addictive TikTok is and about what awful things there are on there. You know, there are people sharing domestic violence videos and there's porn on there and violence on there. And so I'm taking part in a TikTok class soon, and he's like, I won't let you go on it, Mummy. I will delete it from your phone, Mummy. Yeah.
It's like it does. It is the ultimate in sort of like time displacement. You're like, I'll just look at TikTok. Gone, half an hour is gone. That's half an hour of my life. I'm never going to get back. It's crazy.
Well, at the moment, I'm completely addicted to the Love Island game, which has really surprised me.
Oh God!
But it's because I'm getting to have an affair with a cartoon man.
Right.
And the only reason I started playing it, I was up for a job writing on the game, and I said to them during the interview, I said, thank you for letting me have an affair. I've been married for 21 years and I'm now seeing a crane operator in Kent, from Kent. And I've got photos of him in my phone and everything. It's hideous. It literally feels, I wait for my husband to fall asleep and I play the Love Island game. So it really genuinely feels like I'm having an affair, which is horrible.
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't think that counts. I really don't think that counts. It's like, you know, it's an animated being. Have you seen Her with Scarlett Johansson?
No.
Great film, really great film. Her. It's about like an AI which it takes the place of this guy's girlfriend who breaks up with him.
Yeah.
And brilliant, really great film, really great idea, premise for a film. Check it out. It's quite old though, but it's very, very good.
Philosophically though, if I was on Facebook Messenger and I was texting somebody who I knew off Facebook who I'd never met, with the same sentences that I am that I'm typing into the Love Island game to this cartoon, like philosophically, is it that different?
I think yeah, because that person, that's a real person that's speaking to you and relaying messages, you know, and this other thing. But unless you find out like years down the line that it's not actually a program, there's somebody in China who's actually sending you these messages via this.
They're not in China, they're in London. I mean, that's one of the things that worried me about. When I was up for this job and I couldn't do the job because it was a 9-to-5, which is just completely alien to me. But I said to my daughter, I said, what if I start working for them and I meet the person who has programmed Gary and I fall in love with them? Yeah. And she said, but it might be there's loads of women that work at this. It might be a woman and you're straight. And I went, but if the woman is Gary, I might still fall in love with her.
Yeah, exactly. That's even more confusing. That's a double bubble. It's like, oh my God, I'm not ready for this. But also great material.
Am I not ready for it, or is it the future? This is true. You know,
it's true.
It might actually save my marriage if I get addicted to role-playing games, because then I won't Facebook message somebody who's actually on the comedy circuit or something. Like it might be really good for me.
Maybe you just like say to your husband, look, please wear this high vis jacket just tonight. I'm loving it.
Do you know what he knows about the high vis thing? The high vis thing has been long standing.
Right.
And even just making this guy in the game makes me cups of tea.
Oh. Yeah.
And mate, you've got to step up.
Yeah.
You've got to make me some cups of tea.
That's
because
right.
I have so much in common with this cartoon crane driver. Yeah. He doesn't like avocado, and I don't like avocado. And I don't even know how the people who wrote the Love Island game know that.
Right.
Like, how do they know that him saying he doesn't like avocado would make me fall in love with him?
Wow. That's very specific, isn't it? It's very specific.
Very specific.
Wow. God.
And the only olives he likes are the big nocellara ones. Like, how do they know this? How do they know that these two things would make me fall in love with a cartoon crane driver?
Okay, I think you should delete this from your phone. I think it's listening to all the things you're doing. It sounds like it's become a symbiote. It's actually part of your life now. You can't. You're. Oh my God, that's insidious. terrifying as well. How it knows. The AI is
They'll
evolved.
be able to do that though, won't they? You'll be able to get an AI partner in your phone who will farm all your data. And so they'll say something like, I could really do with a Chinese. And I'll go, I've just had a Chinese takeaway. Oh, wow, and you didn't share it with me? And they will know every email you've sent. they'll I'll switch it on and they'll say, how did the podcast with Winter go? Great, thanks, hun. Thanks for keeping my Chinese warm for me. And they'll know all this because they're in your phone. Yeah,
but also imagine if the AI got pissed off because the fact that you had a Chinese without them, and then just turned your phone off and didn't speak, didn't let you use it for fucking 3 days. Oh my god, that'd be that's terrible. That'd be so you got to keep your phone happy. It's like, pay attention to me. Oh great, now that's
like
just
a Tamagotchi.
Yeah, like that's it, and like it just everything just gets shut down if you don't pay attention to it. That's what it's going to be like now. This is getting
good
terrible.
Though. Yeah, because after I went viral with something where I was just shouting at traffic about asking them why they weren't in lockdown. I was having politicians share it as well as comics. And I could tell actually from my responses whether a politician had just shared it or whether a comic. Because if a comic had shared it, I'd get, oh, this is funny. Yeah. And if a politician had shared it, I'd go, people like you make me sick. So I was getting a lot of blowback. Yeah. And in the end, my husband actually had to take my phone off me and hide it. Yeah. Because I was spending all day worrying about what the next thing was that somebody was going to say to me. So in the end, I had to phone Frankie and say, like, do I switch it off? Because if I switch it off and I get a death threat, do I need to know that I've got a death threat? And like, do I need to say thank you to the people that do like it? Do I need to answer people back in a cocky way, or do I just ignore it? Because I was just like, I don't know what to do about this situation.
That little drip feed of endorphins, like, I just need another hit. Did someone like it? Okay, they didn't like it. Oh, and either way, it's like a roller coaster up and down, isn't it? Oh, that was good, bad. Oh, there it is. Oh, good. That's a positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement.
Only the negative ones that I was getting a bit obsessed with. And I think because I wasn't prepared for it as well, I forgot. It wasn't till like 2 days later that I went, oh, I was meant to be funny when I replied to them. Because the first thing, and especially since such a lot of people were saying, do you not understand that people have to go to work? I'm sick of people like you sitting at home on full furlough, not understanding people that have to work, and me just wanting to say to them, my entire industry has been pulped. I am sitting at home on nothing at the moment. At the time, I hadn't had any money for a month and a half. Do you not understand why I am making stupid content? Yeah,
exactly. Trying to survive. So Meryl, you got some stuff going on. You got plenty of stuff happening. So you got like, what's this guy's name from Kent?
I've already said it. I haven't tell anybody.
Right, that's fine. Sorry. Okay, well look, this guy. You've got this guy.
One of the worst things is that. So I googled his name to try and get some pictures of him. Yeah. And of course, what you forget. Like millions of people play this game, so he has had relationships with millions of other people. Yeah. And there were all these threads on like how to get Gary to like you, what things to check, to how to get Gary to have sex with you. And one of them said like that Gary was going to have an affair, and I was so upset. And I was like, right, I'm not going to read these. Yeah. But what was good was that when he did have an affair, I was like, okay, I knew this was happening. It's just because he's a robot. He doesn't mean it. It's not sincere.
Yeah, that's it. It's just a thing. It's a fling. It's just a fling. It's fine. He'll come back to me.
It feels more serious. It just feels so serious. He likes industrial landscapes, and I do as well.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Right, Meryl, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you for the last hour or so. It really has. It's been great. And I know I'm keeping you from Gary, but like, it's great.
I'm trying to keep it to like 20 minutes a day now, Gary.
It's brilliant. And I really hope that, I hope the COVID positive stays positive, but like in an emotional sense. And that next up, I can't wait to see that vanilla when it comes up on next up. And
I've not said it out loud until now, so now I'm really worried that I jinxed it.
No, it'll be fine.
This year, I mean, we've moved the recording date 3 times already, so how much more can you jinx things anyway?
No, you'll be fine. You'll be fine, I'm sure. Yeah, so like, I'll say this. Where can we find you then, Meryl? You're in your course, and you're doing a stand-up course.
Twitter is the best place to find me.
Great. What is it?
My stupidly spelled name. So it's MERYLOROURKE.
Brilliant.
So I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn because I live in the 90s. Actually, no, that's silly because we didn't have the internet in the 90s. But LinkedIn is so old-fashioned. It's almost like a 90s website. But I'm scared of Instagram and TikTok, so they're not there yet.
Fair. What's the name of that app that you're playing
Love
on?
Island, the Love Island game.
Right.
I don't think you can find me on there. There's no social aspect to it.
Which is good.
Unless you are the person who created Gary.
Unless you are Gary.
Unless you are Gary and you drive a crane in Kent and you like big olives and don't like avocado, then call me.
Brilliant.
Well, no, don't, because I'm married.
Yeah,
but,
that's...
we all got COVID. One of us might die soon.
That's true.
So...
yeah, keep in touch.
Keep my options open until we've all got the all clear.
That's right.
I'm beginning to wonder if they could arrange for a drawing of Gary to be at my funeral if I die of COVID.
Do you know what?
I don't know if you're into gaming or anything. So
no.
my son is really into gaming and gaming memes and gaming videos. And there's have you seen? I'm not sure what country it's from. It's an African country where these guys are dancing underneath the coffin.
Right.
It's
yes.
a song that goes
I've seen it.
So my son is obsessed with that. He actually, his birthday, he found a 6-hour loop of that. So we listened to funeral music all day on his. So now that we've got COVID, because you have no idea how ill you're going to be. So I did say to both of the kids, I did say to them, no, if I die, this, and this, in a very plain way. And he did say to me, if you die, can we have the coffin dance at your funeral? Can I hire some dancers? Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, it's not really what I wanted, it's what he wants, but, that would be so sweet. So I said, of course, darling. Oh. So, it is a really odd feeling like that, though. With my relatives, I've been saying... because you do hear stories about people who are absolutely fine one day and then go into a coma the next day. Right. So I do feel okay, but I've still said to my relatives, if I die, can you pop round because you're not vulnerable and these other relatives are vulnerable? And my mum had cancer a few times. And so I had around the house various lists of these are my bank accounts, these are who you need to contact. Yeah. And I just think it's good every now and then to just touch base and say to people, okay, well, if the worst happens, what's going to happen? Are you going to come round? What's going to happen? So, that was a bit weird. Spent a day doing that.
To organising your stuff.
Weird and good.
No, that's good. You need to be prepared, right? That's what I'm saying. I'll organise my shed, organise the garage. So I've said this about before, but about hoarders and stuff. You go around to these people's houses and go right. In these programs, you see, there's they've got about stacks of magazines. They have to have tunnels to go through their houses, and they've got a room that's just filled with shit, literal shit, and you're going, okay, all right. So not very organised, this person, right? But now I've started to get rid of stuff out of my place, and I'm going, okay, right now I'm fully organised. And my kids are kind of going, now what? Do you know what needs to go now? You. That's all. And so you kind of see that all those hoarders weren't hoarders at all. They were just protecting themselves from being ejected from their house. Cause they're built like a sort of a mummy's team, a mummy's pyramid. The little secret kind of booby traps and passageways that they can't be found. And that's what it is. That's what I believe anyway. But it's you need to get ready. I mean, you think to yourself, right? I've got everything organised now. Do you know the last thing I need to get? I'll organise my funeral. That's all it is, isn't it? But hey, not being morbid. We're going to
have the African dancers, apparently.
That's great, Joe. On my funeral, Joe, I want burning alive because I'm gonna get cremated. That's what I want.
I reminded the kids that because we've got my parents are in a plant pot on the balcony.
Oh yeah,
right. You cremate me, you stick me in the plant pot.
Great,
nice and easy. Together
again.
Yeah.
Well, Meryl, thank you so much for spending an hour and a bit with me on the show. It's been a pleasure, and I wish you all the best, and hopefully that fourth organisation of the date for the next up show will come and transpire, and you will be good.
I say, I wish I hadn't said it because now I'm like, it's jinxed, it's being jinxed. But yeah, we shall see. Just being asked is nice. At this stage,
damn right.
Well, I know I do need money, but I've stopped doing the maths. But at this stage, just people saying yes is so lovely, Yeah,
of course. Okay, well, pleasure. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Winter.
And that was episode 86 with the very funny comedian Meryl O'Rourke. She's got gigs come up around the country in Leeds, Worcester, and in, I think, Manchester. Go and find her on Twitter at Meryl O'Rourke. That's at MERYLOROURKE at Meryl O'Rourke. She's also got courses which sell out within minutes, so go and check her Twitter out. Then you'd know when the next course is coming up, so you can get on it as soon as it pops up. She's also filming her stand-up special Vanilla in September, so again, go to her Twitter and go and join her and support her on there. She's an excellent comedian, and a lovely person to boot. So please go and support her. Excellent comedian. You can support this podcast on Twitter. We're there at Winter Dominus. I'm on Instagram at Winter Dominus. You can go and find our Facebook page, which is The Comedy Defect Facebook page, or you could join the actual Facebook group, which is The Comedy Defect Facebook group as well. If you like this podcast enough and you feel like you want to donate, you could go to Patreon, type in The Comedy Defect Podcast, and donate as little or as much as you feel this podcast is worth. And if you can't donate, that's all right. I know money's tight for everyone. Don't worry about it. I'm still going to make them. You could share your favourite episode or just tell your friends about the show, because it tells people where we are and what we're up to. And that's it for now for this month's Comedy Defect podcast. That was Meryl O'Rourke. I say go find her on Twitter. She's got a show coming up. Go and support her. Brilliant comedian. And next month we've got another brilliant comedian, a guy I gigged with when I first started years ago. I just wanted to talk to him, see how he's getting on. His name is Michael Mee. He's gigged all over the world. He's supported some fantastic names on his comedy journey. It is Michael Mee. That is for episode 87. Until the end of June, let's hope the weather gets better, and I will hopefully get better by the end of June. I'm sure it will. I'll just take a lot of Lemsip or whatever drugs I can find, and hopefully I will pull through. I'm sure I will. But it's a bit of a coincidence that Meryl tested positive and I got this cold just as I was editing her episode. But hey, weird, huh? Maybe synergy. Until next month, take it easy. Hope the weather improves and get your barbecue out. Take care.